Hello everyone, I am Cole and this is Burdette's Custom Meats. We wanted to try something kind of new here, new to us anyway. We wanted to provide you with a series of videos to kind of show you, the breakdowns we'll start with beef, breakdowns of beef, kind of where the steaks are pulled from, where the roasts are pulled from, where underutilized cuts that you might not even know about are kind of pulled from. So we're going to start this series of videos with what we would do if you called us to get a cut sheet done, or if you wanted to get beef processed. So the first question we would have for you is, how much are you looking for? Are you looking for a whole beef, half beef, or a quarter beef? So we have out here, this is just a half a beef. As you can see, I split it right down the spine here, so this is half of a carcass. If you wanted to get a whole beef, you would obviously have both halves, and then a quarter beef. Depending on your butcher shop, you might get, if you want a quarter, you might just get a back quarter, or you might just get a front quarter. Here at Burdette's, if you get a quarter of beef, we'll take a half of beef, we'll break down the entirety of it, and we'll split it evenly between you and the other person getting the quarter. So after we've figured out kind of how much you're looking to get, we will go through a cut sheet with you. So it starts out kind of on the kill floor, on the slaughter floor. So on the kill floor, if you want some kind of underutilized cuts, there's some options there for you. We can start with kind of the organs, the organ meat. So there's the liver, the heart, the tongue, and then oxtail. So what those are obviously the liver sits inside here. The heart sits in the chest here, and the tongue obviously is in the head of the carcass, and then the oxtail is kind of the end of the tail that comes out. We can take that oxtail and we'll slice it between the joints. It's very good for cooking up. So within kind of the body cavity of a beef as well on the kill floor, I can pull out what's called the hanger steak. It's a steak that kind of sits right in here and kind of holds the diaphragm in. So not a lot of people end up saving that. Not a lot of people even actually know it's there to get as a customer. The reason it's not really saved all that much is because when the beef does get split with a splitting saw, that hanger steak sits right in the middle, so the saw kind of mangles it up pretty bad. So to get that steak, I'll have to go in and pull it out before I split it, which isn't a problem. So if you want that hanger steak, we can get that for you. Another thing that we kind of like doing, kind of an underutilized cut, is in that head of the beef, there's the jaw line. There's two muscles, or there's a muscle on each side of that jaw. It's the beef cheek. So we can pull those up for you too. But that's kind of everything on the kill floor that I'll need to know about before I slaughter the beef. Granted, we save pretty much everything on kill floor, whether or not you tell us to or not. We'll have it for you. So once that's all kind of said and done, we will talk about the cut sheet itself. So I always, when you're on the phone with me doing a cut sheet, or if you're here in person doing a cut sheet, I like to start with the front quarter of the beef. So we'll start with that, it'd be the front half. So I always ask, first question is if you want to save the brisket. So the brisket sits right here on a beef. And it's made up of two different muscles. So there's the point right here, kind of the front side of the brisket, and then there's the flat right here. So the flat is a little more lean, and the point's a little more fatty. So I'll ask you if you want to keep that brisket, and on a big carcass like this, I know that brisket can be kind of massive. So if you want, we can split that brisket in two. I can take that flat and package it by itself, and I can take that point and we can package it by itself, depending on how big your family is or who all you're looking to feed. So after the brisket, I'll ask how you want your ribeyes cut. So your ribeyes start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and about a half vertebra down. And ribs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So between the 5th and 6th rib, and then 7.5 vertebra down, that section right here, all this is your ribeyes. So I will ask you if you want to keep your ribeyes boneless or bone in, or if you want to keep them boneless. I really like boneless ribeyes. I'm already in there doing all the work. There's no sense in you kind of carving around a bone when you're cooking it or when you're even eating it. I think that it just looks a little cleaner, but that being said, it's your beef. You do whatever you want with it, and you just tell me and I'll process it the way you want it. So we'll start with a question of boneless or bone-in ribeyes, and then I'll ask you kind of how thick you want them cut and how many per pack you're thinking. From the ribeyes, if you follow that shoulder to that shoulder down, you get into the chuck section. So from there, I'll ask you if you like roasts or if you don't really like roasts. A lot of people kind of now are leaning more towards not liking roasts. So if you want your roasts, your chuck roasts, they'll all come from this section. We can usually get about a seven chuck roasts per half, depending on size you're wanting. But if you're not liking roasts, you can get a lot of steaks out of there too. Some kind of underutilized steaks that not a lot of people get. So within that chuck, there is the flat iron steak, there's a Denver steak, there's another kind of a smaller steak called the mock tender. If you want the mock tender, we can send it. We usually don't send that mock tender, it usually just goes to ground beef. The steaks we tend to usually send out of there are your flat iron and your Denver steak. That being said, if you want both chuck roasts and steaks, you can get both. You'll just get a little less chuck roasts, and then you'll just get your steaks. So after we figure out kind of what to do with your chuck roast, and I guess we'll always send, so your ribeye section ends about here, and it turns into, there's two more steaks you can kind of get. There's smaller steaks, they're called the chuck eye steaks. So we'll always send those two. They're just good kind of smaller steaks for you. After we kind of figure out what to do with your chuck section, we'll ask, under here there's your ribs. There's a lot to do here with your ribs. So if you like your brisket and you like smoking meat, there's these ribs here. We can send them as beef short ribs. They're very, very good smoker meat. One of my favorite things to do on like an offset smoker or even a Traeger. If you don't have a smoker, if you don't like doing long smoked processes, we can also cut that muscle out and I'll slice it really thin for you, called Korean short rib. You can use it for stir fries, things like that. I take all the bone out of that, so it's just really thin sliced muscle. In that front quarter as well, there is what's called the skirt, the inside and the outside skirt. You can see one here and one here. That is actually the diaphragm of the beef. So that's the muscle that kind of separates the stomach section of the beef and the lungs and the heart and all that. So that muscle kind of comes off there, and when I'm pulling the entrails out, that's kind of why it's cut there. So we'll ask you if you want your skirt steaks. I definitely recommend keeping all of it. It's a very good cut of meat. I use it for stir fry, fajitas, and carne asada, stuff like that. Very, very good cut of meat. I think that is about everything on the front quarter of the beef. So after we get done with kind of asking what you want on that front quarter, we will go to kind of the back half of the beef. So within that back half, where that ribeye starts, and it turns into what is the T-bone. The T-bone section, or the short loin section of beef, is right here. And then that eventually turns into the sirloin section. So the sirloin is the very tail, short loin, rib, chuck. So that's kind of the back of the beef. It's all one continuous deal. And there's actually one long muscle called the longissimus that goes this whole distance. So that's kind of like your ribeye and your New Yorks or your T-bone are more or less the same muscle. Ribeye's got the longissimus, and the spinalis kind of sits on top of that longissimus. Whereas your T-bone or your New York, whatever you want, kind of loses that spinalis. It kind of dies out right there, and that's why it turns into a different looking cut of meat. So in that back short loin section, there is, like I said, you can either get T-bone, which is that longissimus muscle on this side, and your tenderloin that sits kind of up underneath the spine here as well. So if you want your T-bone, I'll just take that and I'll cut it into steaks there for you, and it's both, like I said, the one muscle on this side of the bone, and then your tenderloin on the other side of the bone. If you want boneless cuts, we also offer the New York strip, which is just this muscle, as well as your filet mignon or your tenderloin. We'll send you both packs of each of those. And say, like, what we do a lot here too is we'll end up sending, if you want, kind of both. Say you can't make up your mind on if you want T-bone or New York strip. We can cut this first half here into T-bone because that's kind of where you're predominantly. That's predominantly where your tenderloin is. And your tenderloin kind of fizzles out as you get closer to the ribeyes. So we can send T-bone to that front half, and then I'll take this back part of that strip line and I'll turn it into New Yorks for you. And we'll send that kind of tail end of the fillet, take that tail end of that fillet and send it to you. Within this section too is what is known as your flank steaks. That kind of sits, I don't know if you can see in there, it kind of sits on the belly of the beef. And I'll take that and I'll pull it out, and you can kind of use that for, it's a very good grilling dish for stir fry, fajitas. Okay, now that we kind of shifted the camera, hopefully it's not too spotty of a shift. But so after we get to that, after we finish that short loin section, it goes into what is called the sirloin section, and that's kind of the tail end of the back of the beef. So within that sirloin section is obviously your sirloins. So that sirloin consists of a large muscle called the sirloin heart. And what we do here is we cut that sirloin heart into small sirloin fillets for you. And within that sirloin section, there is also, on top of that sirloin heart, sits the picanha. It is a very good cut of meat that you can use as steaks. You can kind of slice it as you cook it whole and then kind of slice it thin as steaks, or you can kind of use it as a roast if you want. Within that sirloin is also the tri-tip, one of my favorite cuts from the entire beef. The tri-tip sits kind of on the bottom side of that sirloin. There's only one tri-tip per half, and it sits, yes, we can show you right here. It sits kind of right in here underneath all this fat of the beef. After that sirloin section is complete, we'll get up into the round of the beef. So that's kind of that back leg, that back quad, the back rump of the beef. So within that round, we can get a lot of good roasts out of there. So depending on how you like your roasts, or if you even like roasts, your chuck roasts are going to be a little more fatty. They're going to have a little more fat compared to muscle, or the muscle is going to be kind of interlaced with more fat versus your roasts in the back rounds. So the round roasts, like the rump roasts, are going to be very lean. So within that round, there is the bottom round, top round, eye of round, and sirloin tip. So kind of the most common roast out of there is the bottom round. It's called the rump roast that we'll send you. It's also, if you send it whole, it's called the flat of the beef. And then the top round kind of sits on top of that bottom round. We can get two really good roasts out of that top round. And then within there is also, like I said, the sirloin tip. If you like sirloins, or if you like steaks, we can cut that roast into steaks for you. Or if you like roast, we can send you the roast. We also have the eye of round in there, just another roast option. Let's say you don't like roast. If you prefer kind of either ground beef, we can either grind any of them if you don't want any of them. Turn them all into ground beef, or if you like, say you like chicken fried steaks, it's a very good spot up there to make cube steaks or tenderized steaks. I can pull a lot of tenderized steaks from there for chicken fried steak and stuff like that. We can also pull a lot of stew meat from up there, so all your stews, beef noodle and whatnot, we can pull a whole bunch of cubed stew meat from up there as well. And then after that round gets kind of more into the back of the leg, the lower part of the leg, it's more shank. That being said, that is kind of most of the actual muscle cuts of beef that you'll be getting on a cut sheet. We also offer, so this big chunk right here, you might be wondering what that is. So this right here is what's known as the kidney fat. So the kidney sits inside that big lump right there. Why we keep that in there is that kind of protects that tenderloin. So that tenderloin sits right back in there. and that fat kind of covers it up. Because when we age everything in the aging cooler, that muscle will dry out, and especially that tenderloin, there's not a lot there covering it, so that tenderloin can dry out really easy. So that's why we keep that kidney fat hanging there. So if you want any beef tallow or anything like that, beef fat, beef tallow, this is a very good spot to get all that from. So we always send beef tallow home with everyone for your cut sheets. So on your cut sheets, we ask you, take your beef tallow because it's a very good source of cooking oils. Beef tallow, and then also we offer the joints and the bones within the whole carcass, just to provide people with the opportunity to make their own bone broth and what have you. Well, my wife and I, we also really enjoy sending dog bones home with people. So that back femur, that front leg, that back leg make very good dog bones. We slice all the bones in half so all the dogs can get to the middle tomorrow. So if you have dogs, we'll send those home for you. And if you don't have dogs, we can still send them home. You can make them as marrow bones, put them in the oven, roast them, and utilize kind of all of what you're paying for. So with that, that's kind of a quick kind of breakdown of what we talk about when we're doing a cut sheet. All right, now we are back to kind of full body view. So, action. So now that we've kind of changed the angle again, that is kind of what we go through on a cut sheet phone call with me or with Shelby. And kind of a quick breakdown of all the different cuts of meat that you could potentially get from your whole beef, half beef, or quarter beef. And that being said, this is kind of the start of a series that we'd like to kind of branch out, and I'll start pulling muscles actually out of the carcass and show you where the muscles come from at a more kind of broke down level, and then we'll take them home, we'll cook them, show you guys how to prepare everything. That way it gives you some options on what to do with some cuts of meat that you might not know about. That being said, I also am very well aware that some butcher shops, probably all butcher shops, are a little different here and there. So some cut sheets might be different than ours. This is just our cut sheet. This is what we ask people when they're on the phone with us. Some muscles might be called different things, but more or less, it's all the same thing. All the muscles. There's no different muscle hidden in a beef that you get versus what we get. So, thank you very much. I look forward to all these videos to come. If you have any questions or comments or anything, I'll leave them somewhere. I don't know where they all go, into the ether. Leave them there for us, and we'll get back to them. So, thanks again. Like I said, we are Burdette's Custom Meats, and we're trying out something new here. So, bear with us. Thank you.